My name is Lucas. I'm 28 now, but what happened to me was on Halloween night back in 2016 when I was 19. I've never told this story to many people. Actually, I think this is the first time I'm sharing it exactly the way it happened. It might sound fake. It might sound like an exaggeration, but I swear on everything I hold sacred, this story is real. That night, I was out with some friends, tagging along with our younger siblings doing the whole trick-or-treating thing. It felt like a good excuse to walk around in costume, laugh a bit, and maybe end the night at a party. We lived in a small town in rural Arkansas called Maple Hollow, one of those places where everyone knows everyone. Houses have yards, and the streets go dead quiet after 9 p.m. But that night felt different. The sky was clear, full of stars, and for the first time in weeks, the streets were full of people, kids, parents, teens laughing loud. Everything felt light. We walked around with the kids, going door to door. It was fun seeing how excited they got with each little candy. But after a while, most of the houses had already turned off their lights or closed their doors. It was like an unspoken rule. Halloween's over here. But then Emily, my buddy Jake's little sister, pointed toward a house at the very end of the street. A house no one had mentioned until then. She said, "Look, that one's still got its light on." Jake and I exchanged a look. The house she was pointing at used to belong to Mrs. Carmichael. Only, we both knew Mrs. Carmichael had died 2 years earlier. Alone. Old age. They said she died in her sleep. Since then, the house had been forgotten. No one bought it. No one rented it. Still, the porch light was on, and the front door slightly open. Emily tugged Jake toward it, and the other kids followed. Jake and I went along, half laughing, half nervous. When we got close, we saw the house was run down. Peeling paint, an overgrown yard, cobwebs around the doorframe. But there was a bowl sitting on a little stool right at the entrance. A red bowl full of wrapped candy. It looked like one of those movie scenes with a little note that says, "Take one and Happy Halloween." But there was no note, and no one around. The kids started grabbing candy, and the bowl just didn't empty. I mean, they were taking handfuls, and it still looked full. I thought it was weird, but honestly, the whole night had felt kind of surreal already. Then Zach, this 10-year-old kid, stepped 1 foot inside the house. He looked at us and said, "There's more candy inside." His voice sounded different, like it had an echo, but he was barely a few feet away from us. Emily followed him in, laughing, and right then I got this deep chill. I'm not the superstitious type, but in that moment, something inside me screamed, "Don't go in." Still, Jake went in after his sister, and I followed. I wasn't about to stay outside alone. The house smelled awful, like a place that had been closed up for years. Mold, rotting wood, and old candy. The place was dark, but we could see a few candles lit on a table, like someone had set the place up. There were more candies scattered on the table, and dolls. A bunch of old dolls, porcelain ones, sitting upright on chairs. That's when I noticed the door that was open before had closed. By itself. No wind, no draft. Just clack. Closed. I went over, tried the knob. Locked. I called for Jake and the kids. No answer. I started walking through the house, and it was like the layout kept changing. You'd turn a corner expecting the living room, but end up in a bedroom. And each room was weirder than tea. He laughed. One had a child's bed with torn up sheets. Crayon drawings on the wall. All of them showed crying children. Another room had a mirror. When I looked into it, I wasn't there. I froze. My heart was pounding. I tried to tell myself this was some elaborate prank. But who would pull something like this with little kids involved? Then I heard crying. It was Emily. I recognized her voice. I ran toward the sound, and when I got there, she was sitting on the floor, back against the wall, face buried in her hands, shaking, repeating one phrase over and over. "She wants to play, she wants to play." I walked up to her, touched her shoulder, and she screamed. But it wasn't her voice. It came from somewhere else, a voice that didn't fit her body. She looked at me, and her eyes were completely black. No whites, no pupils. I ran, screaming for Jake, for anyone. Then I saw Zach. He was standing in the hallway, staring at one of the dolls. And the doll was moving, not walking, just trembling, breathing. He turned to me and said, She doesn't want us to leave." His voice was different too, deeper, like someone else was speaking through him. The house started making this high-pitched noise, like a TV on a dead channel, but 10 times louder. I cover my ears. The lights started flickering. The candles went out, then relit themselves. That's when I saw Jake. He was at the end of the hall, calling to me. But between us was Mrs. Carmichael. At least, I think it was her. A thin woman, wrinkled, wearing a pale blue dress, like she stepped out an old photo. But her face, it was rotting. Literally, like she'd just been dug up. Skin falling off, eyes hollow, and a smile. A smile too wide to be human. She reached out a hand and said, "Stay. The game's just begun." Then everything went black, like someone turned off the world. Next thing I knew, I was outside, lying on the ground, chest aching. Jake was there too, coughing. The kids, all asleep, deeply asleep. The house, dark, silent, like nothing had happened. We called the kids' parents, told them some sicko had pulled a Halloween prank. But when they went back the next day, the house was locked up with a padlock, covered in dust. No bowl, no candy, no candles. The police looked into it, found nothing. To this day, Emily won't talk about it. Says she doesn't remember anything. But sometimes, without realizing, she draws dolls, crying children, and always writes at the bottom. She wants to play. I stopped going out on Halloween after that. And if you live in a small town and see a house at the end of the street with the lights still on, don't go in. My name is Marianne Cooper. I'm 32 now, but what I'm about to tell you happened when I was 20. It was Halloween night in 2013, and I'll never forget it, because that was the night I realized some things can't be explained. And real fear isn't about screams or jump scares. It's silence. It's the feeling that the world has forgotten you exist. I lived in rural Kansas, in a small town called Deerbrook. Quiet, peaceful, one of those places you barely see on a map. Every Halloween, there was a lame little college party with cheap decorations, loud music, and awful drinks. But we always had fun. That year, the party was going to be at a senior's house, way out on a farm road known as Old Miller Road. Everyone avoided that road at night. There was this old story about a farmer who hung himself in his cornfield after his whole family died in a fire. But, of course, no one took it seriously. Just another creepy tale from a small town, right? Me and 3 friends, Lauren, Josh, and Blake, decided to go together, carpooling. Lauren was driving. It was an old Corsa, but it got the job done. We left around 8 p.m., playing music, laughing, drinking some warm beer Blake had stuffed in his backpack. But when we turned onto Old Miller Road, everything changed. I can't explain it. It just felt darker than usual. And cold. Not weather cold. Wrong cold. No one said anything, but the music faded out and the conversation stopped. Lauren finally asked, "Hey, has this road always been this empty?" It really was deserted. No other cars, no houses, just cracked pavement and on both sides, massive cornfields. Tall, thick, swaying gently, even though there was no wind. And then we saw it. A scarecrow, in the middle of the cornfield, but really close to the road. Like way too close. Arms stretched wide, wearing tattered clothes. A straw hat. And the face was the worst part. It wasn't a sack or a stuffed head. It looked like a cracked porcelain mask. White, empty black eye holes, and a thin, red smile. Painted on. Creepy as hell. We made jokes. Nervous laughs. Josh said, "Wow, somebody went all in for Halloween. Who puts a scarecrow right next to the road?" But no one responded. Deep down, we all felt it. Something was off. Still, we kept driving. A couple miles later, we saw another scarecrow. Exactly the same. Same pose. Same hat. Same cracked porcelain face. Then Blake said, "Wait, didn't we already pass that one?" We thought maybe it was just a similar decoration. Maybe a local farmer had a theme going. But after the third identical scarecrow, it was obvious. Something was seriously wrong. Lauren sped up, but the car started sputtering. The engine coughed, then died. Right there in the middle of the road. No cell signal. No lights, not even bugs or wind. Josh tried the ignition again. Nothing, just the click, click, click of a dead engine. Lauren started panicking. I was freaking out. We locked the doors. But let's be real, what good would that do? Then Blake, sitting in the back seat, whispered, "Guys, look in the cornfield." We all looked, and there was again, the Scarecrow, but this time closer, not at the edge of the cornfield. It was maybe 10 feet from the car. Still, arms open, same cracked mask, same painted smile. But here's the part that broke me. There was no post behind it. It was just standing. Lauren screamed. Josh told her to start the car again, frantically. I couldn't move. I couldn't look away. That mask felt like it was staring straight at me, even though it had no eyes. Then the Scarecrow took a step forward. Right then, the engine roared to life, like something gave it power. Lauren floored it. We peeled out, tires screeching. No one said a word for minutes. We were all in shock. But the road never ended. We kept driving, but it felt like we were going in circles. Same fields, same broken pavement, same 3 Scarecrows. The gas gauge dropped. The radio started cutting in and out. Static, but underneath the static, a woman's voice. She kept repeating, "Stay, he needs you." Her voice wasn't loud. It was deep down, like it came from the ground. After the 5th loop, we passed the same stretch again, and there it was. The Scarecrow, now just inches from the road. Blake started crying. He said, "We're not getting out. He's keeping us here." Josh snapped, started yelling, telling Blake to shut up, that it was all in our heads. But deep down, we all knew this wasn't in our heads. Then the car just died, dead silent. No lights, no sound, and then footsteps, crunching slowly on dry dirt. Heavy, dragging, getting closer. Then they stopped, right outside the car. Knock, knock, a soft knock, on Blake's window. He turned slowly, froze. Lauren started screaming. I turned too. The Scarecrow was right there, staring in, but now it had eyes, human eyes, bloodshot, deep red, and the smile, somehow even wider. It slowly lifted a long, bony finger and pointed at me. I don't remember much after that. My body locked up. Everything went black. I passed out. When I woke up, it was morning. The car was parked right at the start of Old Miller Road, facing back toward town, like we'd never driven in. But Blake was gone. We searched for hours, called the police. All they found was one of his shoes deep inside the cornfield, almost 2 miles from where we were. No struggle, no blood, nothing. They listed him as a missing person. Case still open. We tried to move on, but none of us were ever the same. Josh dropped out of college not long after, moved out of state. Lauren fell into depression. I still wake up some nights drenched in sweat, thinking about that thing's face. And the worst part? Every Halloween since that night, someone goes missing on Old Miller Road. And everyone who survives says the same thing. We saw a Scarecrow, but it was walking. My name is Brandon. I'm 26 now, but this happened when I was 17 in a small town called October Ridge in West Virginia. The kind of place where nothing ever really happens until the day you realize the worst things are the ones hiding under what looks normal. At the time, I really wanted to buy my first car. My parents said they'd help only if I showed I was responsible. So when a temporary job opened up at the local grocery store, Ridgemart, I jumped at the chance. Just 2 weeks, helping with Halloween setup, stocking shelves, organizing inventory. Easy enough, right? What I didn't know was that the shift would be overnight, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Just me and the night guard, a guy named Curtis who mostly just slept in the security booth. But I wanted that car, so I said yes. The first night was chill. I got basic instructions, started unpacking boxes of decorations. Fake cobwebs, rubber masks, plastic skeletons. It was actually kind of fun. But as the nights went on, things started to get weird. First, it was the store's radio system. It only turned on during the night shift. It played old-timey jazz like something out of the 1940s. Kind of eerie, but I got used to it. The weird part was, every time I walked past the costume aisle, the music would cut out, replaced by static, like an old tape being rewound. Only in that aisle. I told Curtis. He just shrugged and said, "Happens every October. Don't think too much about it." I laughed it off, but by the fifth night, I noticed something else. There was a costume in the back room that wasn't on the inventory list. It was a black suit, neatly pressed, white shirt hanging on a metal rack, and a black mask, featureless, smooth, no tag, no barcode. It didn't look like a costume. It looked like a funeral outfit. I figured maybe someone left it behind. Went back to work. But every night after that, that suit started showing up in different parts of the store. One night, it was hanging at the end of the soda aisle. Another time, near the bathrooms. One time, inside the employee locker room. Always hanging, always freshly pressed. Like someone had just taken it off. I started getting paranoid. I kept feeling like someone was in the store with me. But the cameras always showed nothing. Then Halloween night came. The manager left a note. "You're in charge of restocking the candy and keeping the front decorations lit until the end of your shift. Oh, and if a customer shows up after midnight, be polite. Sometimes people come in wearing costumes." That line, "if a customer shows up after midnight," really bothered me. I mean, who shops for groceries after midnight in a town of 5,000? At 12:22 a.m., the front door slid open. I thought it was Curtis, but he was still asleep in the booth. I checked the cameras. No one walked in. I rewound the footage. The doors opened, but no one came through. And then, when I looked back out at the store floor, it was standing there, that black suit, in the center aisle, perfectly upright. I swear I didn't hear footsteps. No creaking, no wind. It just appeared. The figure was still. Mask pointed right at me. I froze. The light above the aisle flickered. When it came back on, the figure was gone. I started walking through the store, slowly. Every shelf felt like it was hiding something. I couldn't tell if I was being followed or if I was just losing it. Near the cleaning supplies, I saw it again. But this time, it had a head. The mask wasn't just a mask. It was a face. Pale, tight skin, no life in the eyes. The mouth was a flat, sewn line. And then, it turned its head and stared straight at me. I didn't run, didn't scream. My whole body locked up. It raised its arm and pointed down. I looked at the floor. Written there in what looked like red paint, or maybe blood, were the words, "You accepted." That's when I heard the voice, but not with my ears, in my head. Overnight shift, position filled, soul claimed. The lights went out. For a few seconds, there was nothing, just my breathing and the hum of the backup generator. When the lights came back, the store was empty again. No figure, no writing on the floor. I ran to Curtis, shook him awake, yelled at him. He swore he didn't see anything on the cameras. He drove me home. I thought I was just overtired, hallucinating. I didn't go back the next night, or the one after. I quit. The manager didn't even ask why. He just said, "You lasted longer than the others." At the time, I thought it was a joke. But months later, I found out that since 2008, every Halloween, a teenage night shift employee at Ridgemart has vanished. Almost all of them were working the overnight. No formal investigation ever stuck. And to this day, the security footage from October 31st is always corrupted. I never told my family the truth. I just said I got sick. But every time I drive past that store, I see a new sign. Now hiring. Overnight Halloween shift. Temporary position. Starts October 31st. Don't take it. Thanks for watching. And if you're still with me after all 3 stories, you might want to leave a light on tonight. If you've got a true horror story of your own, something you've never told anyone, something that still keeps you up at night, send it to the email in the description. I'll be back next week with more. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, some doors are better left closed.